Again and welcome back. I am here with Julia Hu, founder and CEO of Lark Health. Julia, thank you so much for setting aside the time and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Patty. Great to be here and to see you again.
Wonderful. So, Julia, we've known each other for a while. I know you have a very interesting personal story that led you to starting the company. So, for the benefit of our listeners, would you like to take a few minutes just talk us through how you got to starting the company and some of your personal journeys that have led you to where you are?
Yeah, it's certainly been a journey, and I would say one that started when I was a child. So I'm not a doctor. I have no clinical background, but I am a deep consumer of healthcare. Uh, I I ever since I was a little kid, I had many different chronic conditions, autoimmune conditions. They were all undiagnosed, but left me as a pretty sick kid. And my dad had to quit his day job to take care of me. And really, after visiting dozens of doctors, he found this pediatrician for me. And it was like my 24/7 care team, my pediatrician, my dad, and me, over 12 years on this journey, where my pediatrician would completely change my diet and help me manage pain and exercise and sleep um, and medication and stress. And it really changed my life.
Good to know.
Yeah, so it really changed my life. And I got rid of 90% of my attacks, even though I didn't know what I had as a condition or a series of conditions. So that's really it. It really changed the way that I saw medicine, and I felt like if you could treat the whole person and provide 24/7 personal compassionate care, that you could really do a lot to change people's lives. So fast forward, as an adult, I saw that there were not enough doctors and nurses, and our doctors and nurses are so overworked. So how can you really create this unlimited, infinitely scalable care, especially focused on people struggling with chronic conditions or struggling with some health issues that lead to chronic conditions or mental health struggles. And so, as a tech entrepreneur, we decided to tackle this very big problem, of creating using AI and remote patient monitoring, and behavioral health and cognitive behavioral therapy. How do you use these tools and technologies to infinitely scale virtual care? And that's really how Lark was born.
Right, right. And so what kind of conditions do you address using your approach and your platform?
Yeah, think of our platform as 24/7 text message based counseling, plus all of the remote patient monitoring. So the devices that someone might need, whether they have diabetes, hypertension, prediabetes, stress and anxiety, or they just want to sleep better or stop smoking. So it's about 10 conditions that we cover in preventative, chronic, and mental health. And we treat about 2 million, we have about 2 million patients on our platform. And we help our health plans manage 30 million lives right now for one of these 10 conditions.
So your main customers are health plans?
Yes, that's our main customer. We also have about 1,000 employers that we work with, and actually also just starting to work with pharma companies as well.
Right, right. So, remote care, AI enabled care has been doing the rounds for several years, and there's a lot of companies that are doing a similar. They're taking a similar approach to remote care. How is yours specifically different? Is it the cognitive behavioral aspect of it? Is it the tech? Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. So most of population health today is what I would call either healthcare services or tech-enabled healthcare services, which means you have a care manager or nurse, and they do a phone call with you, or they do a webinar with you, or you go in person, right, to a doctor to get a care plan. So that obviously has scale and cost constraints. So what we tried to do is we tried to say, okay, what if you could automate this first line of defense and turn it essentially into an AI chatbot? So we spent about 7 years, $100 million in R&D, and trained our AI on about 1 million patients, and it started getting clinical equivalence to live nurses. That's how we started scaling our services, and why we're able to manage more than 2 million folks through all of this tech and automation. Now, the tech and automation is really not just the devices and the hardware and remote patient monitoring, but also think of us as a friend, right? We're there at 1 a.m. if you need to text. When you're feeling stressed, we'll do a 5-minute meditation session with you. When you're a diabetic and you have some increases in glucose, we'll help you understand what you ate that triggered that. So we're really all about using the best of cognitive behavioral therapy, the best of the care plans, and providing care in a easy to digest way.
You mentioned the term clinical equivalence. Can you explain that? What does it mean?
Sure. So what we've done is to be able to show that just with our AI text message based counseling, we've been able to show equivalent outcomes to live nurse care management type services. So everything from, we're seeing 1 point A1C average drop for diabetics. We're seeing 13 points drop on hypertensives. We are, for example, CDC fully recognized as a DPP provider. So in the CDC does a longitudinal look at 2,400 providers, and we are in the top 25% of those providers. And so we've been able to show that our outcomes are just as good, but because we are AI and not taking up and using all of these nurses and coaches, that we're able to be much more scalable and deliver deliver care at much lower the cost.
Right, right. And do you, in commercial terms, do you offer these kinds of, are you in a position to offer these kinds of assurances to your clients, like health plans, and really sort of take risk and participate in the rewards and the gains? Are you in a place to do that confidently based on all of this experience?
Yes, we are, and that's why we do performance-based pricing, and we only get paid if we hit certain clinical thresholds, if we engage patients, and so we have that. We have PMPM. We have performance guarantees. We really try to make sure that we put our money where our mouth is.
Right. So if I look back at the last couple of years, obviously we had the pandemic, followed by another. Within the pandemic, behavioral health, mental health was a big pandemic. So were other conditions, and then of course the other big forcing function more recently has been the shortage of labor. How has that impacted your demand environment on the one hand, but also how has it impacted your own business in terms of these factors, these macro level factors?
I think that the pandemic has really changed everything, but I think that specifically the silver lining to the pandemic in my mind is that healthcare has been the last industry that hasn't yet been truly revolutionized by technology and disrupted by technology. And I do feel that the pandemic has pushed us probably up a whole generation on unlocking some of that innovation. For us, our managed members, we went from 1 million to 30 million managed members for our health plans. We went from you know, a ragtag team of engineers and tech and data AI folks. We raised about $160 million during the pandemic, and scaled our team close to 500%. So we do feel we feel very excited that we've been able to participate because virtual care and getting care delivered through your phone, wherever you are, at home, safe in your own home. These are things that really started shifting with supply and demand, right? Like it's been a real learning curve. And now that the pandemic is, in a much better place, people want to stay here, right? They want to get convenient access to care, cheaper access to care, and when they want it, when they need it, right? They want consumer care now, rather than healthcare being very non-consumer centric. So I think that in those ways, we've been a beneficiary of the acceleration toward digital innovation. But of course, we've also had to struggle with, building a completely remote workforce and, creating the culture to align teams. We've not been immune to this recession that's looming. I'm just, I do feel very grateful though, that I think that we've been really pushing forward and had a good growth spurt.
Right. And firstly, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished so far, and especially the funding rounds that you've raised during the pandemic. Now, of course, the last couple of years, or at least 2020 and 2021, were really, really good years for fundraising, especially for later stage startups that had demonstrated some degree of traction and stability and growth potential and so on. But things have changed a little bit this year, especially in the second half of the year. And so, you've got other, apart from all the macro factors, inflation, interest rates, and so on, the VC funding environment has contracted a little bit. What has that meant for not just you as a company, but for the digital health startup ecosystem? What are you seeing out there on the ground? And how are you seeing startups kind of work their way through this situation?
It's so interesting, Patty. You and I were just talking about the health conference that just came out, and I was so shocked at how many hundreds of vendors there were and new digital innovations in the exhibit halls. And so I do think that the funding has really pushed forward a ton of innovation. Now, I do think that with the recession coming and the big drawback of capital funds available, now you have a lot of new companies needing to essentially get toward go-to-market strategy, get toward product market fit, get toward profitability and revenue much more quickly. And so I think that there is going to be some bumpiness. I think that there is going to be definitely consolidation in the market. I think that there's going to be, a lot of point solutions getting, deals here or there that are pretty young. And so the partners on the employer side, on the health system side, on the health plan side, might also experience some bumpiness as they work with very innovative but very potentially new companies and young companies that hopefully, get through the winter. But I think that everyone, not just the young companies, all of us, growth companies, newly public companies, I do think that it's our job to be good stewards of the capital in our coffers, to really focus and focus on the core business, to really drop and deprioritize some fun experiments
Yeah.
and R&D efforts, and really just lean into the focus areas.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's so important what you just said, and one of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur is it's just as important what you choose not to do as it is to decide what you choose to do. Right? And this the comments you made about the funding environment and what it means for startups that have sort of overextended themselves, and we have seen examples of that. For example, in the behavioral health space, that the companies have run into trouble. They've had to lay off people. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and it's a culling of the herd, which happens every now and then, every few years or so. So I heard you say recession twice in your comments. So is it kind of like a given now, based on everything that you're saying, that in 2023 we are going to be in a recession, or we are probably already in one, we just don't know it?
I am not an economist. I don't know enough about the markets. I feel like I feel like we need to be very honest with ourselves. We are in the beginnings of winter, and I don't think that winter will be over immediately. So of course I hope for the best, but I also plan for a more serious winter.
Right, right, and hold on to the cash, as they say, right? Now, you mentioned partnerships and alliances, and I know you and I have talked before. You've done some interesting partnerships, especially one with Salesforce. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure thing. Yeah, we were just at Dreamforce launching our
We met there.
That's right. That's right. We were just at Dreamforce with the Chief Customer Officer and the Chief Health Officer, launching our product partnership that we created, a tech stack with Salesforce. And I think it's very exciting because here we've been able to bring together two parts of the tech stack that I think serve the marketplace. So as you know, Salesforce is very good with being a market leader in CRM, and essentially like a data infrastructure for and toolkit for everything on the marketing side, but now also with the clinical workforce. So the pharmacists, the care managers, the telehealth providers, providing data to them through a clinical CRM, so that they can perform at the top of their license. And they came to us and said, hey, we've got this market leading product. Now, what we do need is a way and a technology to really mass acquire members and patients, to acquire them, to engage them, to triage them into virtual care plans, and then to be the front line of defense for care. And then at the right times, escalate them to nurses, care managers, providers, et cetera, and make sure that they get the data, the clinical side gets the data so that they can perform at the top of their license. And so that was our exciting partnership, this idea of we are the D2C and they are the B2B platform, and we are co-selling that into health plans, into payviders, value-based care providers, and pharma. So
Right, right. We're coming up to the end of our time. I want to touch on one topic. 2023, it looks like it's going to be a difficult year all indications. Now, what is your advice for other founders, startups, those who have either recently come into the market with a product and they're finding themselves facing headwinds because of the macro environment, or those who are looking to get into digital health right now and they have a nice idea? What's your advice to them?
I think you gave great advice, right? Hold on to that cash. I think that focus is probably my advice. Just focus on where your strengths are. Be very honest with yourself on what your strengths are and where you're weak, and just focus on those strengths and leveraging. How do you lean into those strengths to leverage them even more? And for us, I keep on telling my team, our two strengths are we have a cost advantage and we have a scale advantage. So where do we lean into to really, where that matters, right? Well, where we have a cost sensitive client, and you would say like, oh, all clients are cost sensitive. But in fact, we found a lot of interest and scaling in value-based care partners, in fully insured. So we power many fully insured book of business for health plans. We power Medicare and Medicaid. So it's these types of things, really leaning into your strengths and just being very focused.
Right, right, right. Excellent, excellent. So, Julia, this has been such a fascinating conversation. And thank you so much for sharing all your insights and sharing your personal story. Congratulations once again. I've been a great admirer of your firm from afar, and all the very best to you and your team in the coming year.
Thank you so much, Patty. It was lovely to see you.